Well, let's get some insight from the other side of the aisle. Florida Senator Rick Scott joins us now. Senator, great to have you back. And we've talked about the fact, and Congressman Barr referenced the fact that you started and ran one of the largest hospital chains in the country. So this issue of cost transparency, how could that help the consumer? And what more could Congress be doing on that front?
Well, first off, we ought to direct the dollars, as Congressman Barr has said and Trump has said. Give it to the person that is getting is going to buy the health care of the patient. I grew up in a family that my mom struggled to find health care for her brother that had a disease. She had to go 4 hours away to a charity hospital because nobody would take care of him for free. So it's really important to me that we get people health care. So how do you do it? You give money directly to the consumer. They buy the insurance plan they want. You protect pre-existing condition, and you give them information. They should know what everything costs. They should know what the outcomes are. They should know what patient satisfaction. They should be a buyer just like any other. I built on top of a hospital company. I built an urgent care company. We had all of our prices up on the menu board, so everybody could walk in and do it the way they wanted. So if you give it to the individual in HSA, they could pay for a premium. They could pay for their co-payment. They also could pay directly to go get a physical or go see a physician and buy it cheaper. So look, we have to fix this. Obamacare is a disaster. Obama said you keep your doctor, lie. Keep your plan, lie. You'd save $2,500 a family, lie. So we've got to drive the cost of healthcare down. The only way it's going to happen is let the consumer act like a consumer like we do in every other industry in this country.
Okay, to this issue of cash payments, which it sounds like there is some buy-in from both sides of the aisle on handling it that way. Here's a bit of Politico's reporting, though, on that potential proposal. They say, with direct cash payments from the federal government into special accounts, quote, healthy people could get much cheaper insurance that has medical underwriting and doesn't cover pre-existing conditions, but that would leave much sicker people in the ACA pool and likely send it into a death spiral. That's from Larry Levitt, who's over at the Kaiser Family Foundation. As somebody who has worked on the policy side of this, what's your thought on the proposal, the negative prediction for how it would play out?
Well, you've got to do that. You've got to, we're not going to repeal Obamacare. We're going to fix Obamacare. You need everybody ought to be able to buy plans, and everybody ought to be covered with pre-existing conditions ought to be covered. So that would stop that. I'm not suggesting we change the structure because I think we can drive down the cost by giving people options. We do it in everything. We've done it in everything else, but you do have to protect pre-existing conditions. You got to make sure that it's a fair system to everybody. So this is all doable. There's no reason healthcare costs what it costs. We should not give money directly to the insurance companies. That's what these COVID subsidies. Gave money directly to insurance companies. Millions of people didn't even know they had coverage. It just got signed up. And so insurance companies had a pure profit because nobody even got even any health care. So, this conversation, should we continue these COVID subsidies set up by Democrats to expire, okay? So you have somebody making $20 an hour that is subsidized to somebody making $250,000 a year that could be a millionaire. Does that seem fair to you? And by the way, Republicans are not going to continue what they did with the COVID subsidies of paying for abortions and paying for trans surgery. It's just not going to happen. Let's fix the cost of health care, which we can, instead of continuing to mask the cost with these massive subsidies.
Well, and we know, much like the border and immigration, if it was easy, if it was simple, if there was enough bipartisan agreement, it would have been done already. So this is going to take time. There's also the reality of the midterms looming over this whole conversation. The Washington Examiner has this on what they understand of the Cassidy plan at this point, which would include payments, it sounds like, into some maybe health savings accounts or flexible spending accounts. They say this: Chris Pope, health policy expert for the conservative Manhattan Institute, says Republicans will have to do something before 2026. Quote, there's a big political cost for having premiums just suddenly surge across the board. So there's the ethical consideration with making sure people have access and coverage, but there's the political as well. Do you worry when people see those new premiums next year that you guys are going to pay the price at the ballot box?
Well, this is all caused by Democrats. They passed Obamacare and they did these COVID subsidies. So what we've got to do is we've got to do everything we can to pass legislation quickly to drive down the cost. Look, I'm glad that Democrats finally are talking about affordability. I focused on that my entire political career because I grew up in a family that struggled for money. So whether it's the cost of healthcare, it's the cost of food, think about it. Under the Biden years, I think we had about a 2% increase in population and a 50% increase in government spending. Well, what did that do? It caused massive inflation. To get inflation under control and make affordable, balance the budget. Not one Democrat wants to spend the time to balance a budget. That's what we have to do. We can't just keep masking it by giving more free stuff, more free stuff. It'll cause more inflation. We'll never get to affordability.
Okay, I want to put a pin in that for now, the healthcare issue, because you sit on foreign relations. I want to ask you about some of the other big headlines, and that includes what's happening with Venezuela. CBS News reporting this week that senior officials, military officials on Wednesday presented President Trump with updated options for potential operations in Venezuela, including strikes on land. That's according to multiple sources familiar with the meetings at the White House. I wonder your reaction to that news and at what point you think Congress must get involved with what's happening, especially if it's actually in Venezuela.
Well, first off, I'm appreciative that this is the president that cares about the health and safety of Americans. He's doing everything he can to stop these drugs from coming in and killing our kids. I have grandkids. I don't want them dying because of fentanyl, cocaine, or anything else. So I'm very appreciative that this president is stopping the drugs by fixing the southern border and now going after these drug cartels wherever they are. So I'm appreciative of what he's doing. He's doing everything he can to keep Americans safe, and Congress should not slow down what he's trying to do. Look, the thing about Maduro. Maduro's not the president. He's not the duly elected president of Venezuela. He's the head of drug cartels. It's basically a drug cartel-run country right now. So I think President Trump's doing the right thing. Congress should not slow him down.
Okay. Senator, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Shannon. Have a good day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Okay.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.